First time I heard my own termination discussed, I was standing 12 inches from the man planning it, clutching a leaking travel mug and pretending I hadn't just burned my palm. Let her go once she wraps the module. Elevator, floor 18, two men in Patagonia vests. I didn't turn around. I didn't even breathe. Just blinked slowly and tasted rust in my throat. I'd recognize Adam's voice anywhere, our shiny new CTO. Same one who called my architecture surprisingly clean for a woman. The same one who once asked me if I still coded, or just did project management now. The module in question was my brainchild. I wasn't wrapping it, I was it. That thing could run on 2 cores and still outpace half the industry. I'd built the base engine during my divorce hearings, layered the async prediction model, while my ex drained our joint account for cryptocurrency yacht investment. I lost my marriage and 26 grand. But I got this, a back-end engine that could outthink humans, adapt to behavioral cues, and self-optimize without needing a prompt. And they were going to toss me like expired yogurt the second I committed the final build. I got out of the elevator without a word, didn't even look at them. Just walked to my desk, booted up, and opened terminal like I was checking my email. I didn't commit the module, I forked it. Quietly, local clone, encrypted, detached from their repo like peeling off diseased skin. I gave it a new name, Mirha, because Mirha wasn't sweet like honey. She was bitter, ancient, and cursed like me. I didn't rage, didn't cry, didn't call HR with some half-dignified appeal. I just smiled through morning stand-up, while Adam used words like synergy and cutting edge with the conviction of a man who'd never optimized a damn loop in his life. Instead of finishing the last function on their schedule, I started something else. Mirha didn't just do what the original module did, it anticipated why it needed to do it. I wrote it to learn like grief does, slow at first, then all at once. I tested it in midnight bursts when the office lights flickered like failing neurons. I fed it edge cases no investor deck would ever see, abuses, hacks, psychological traps. Mirha survived them all. Meanwhile, the office hummed along in blissful ignorance. HR sent cupcakes for Rebecca's birthday. Product managers flirted through Slack emojis. And Adam? He booked a keynote speech in Berlin titled Modern Efficiency in Scalable Platforms. He put my architecture on the cover slide. I sent the updated fork to a friend of mine in Oslo. Quiet, brilliant, and still owed me a favor from when I caught his startup's API leaking user data in 19. He took one look at Mirha's build and messaged me 2 words, holy hell. I asked him if he could help me package it for silent release, not through App Store channels, not through any pipeline that could be traced back to them. He just sent a thumbs up and the ghost emoji. I kept going, hid the real logs, left intentional bugs in their repo, tiny ones, nothing obvious, just enough to gum the gears the day they'd try to go live without me. And then came the Wednesday morning when things began to shift. Adam swung by my desk, all toothy grins and faux casual. How's the module looking, Vive? I smiled back, same number of teeth. Almost done, just needs a heartbeat. He laughed like he understood the joke. I watched his pupils. I saw the flicker of suspicion, but only for a second. Then it passed. He walked away. That night, I got a Slack message from a senior dev I barely talked to. Hey, not sure if this is intentional, but there's a weird async loop happening in the prediction layer. Feels recursive. I stared at the message. The prediction layer was from their branch. I never wrote recursion into mine. Something was bleeding across branches, which meant someone had copied my code or worse, accessed my dev folder. I locked everything down, changed passwords, then checked my logs. There it was. An unauthorized login at 2:47 a.m., routed through a dev machine that hadn't been active in weeks. They'd already seen Mirha, and now it wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about survival. I didn't sleep that night. I sat cross-legged on the floor of my apartment, Mirha's build logs lighting up my wall like a crime scene. Every time I thought I'd reached the bottom of their betrayal, the hole deepened. The unauthorized login came from a workstation assigned to Jacob Lynn, junior dev, barely out of a boot camp, fresh into Adam's little boy club of fast-track promotions and mentorship opportunities. Jacob didn't have access to my folder, not unless someone handed him credentials. Adam was feeding them. They weren't just planning to cut me loose. They were trying to inherit me. Gut my code, white label the intelligence, slap their own logos on its skin and parade it around like they'd birthed it. I watched the commit timestamps again. 3, maybe 4 snippets pulled, not the core engine yet, but enough to raise a question I hadn't dared think until that moment. How long had they been copying? Aletheia was just the name of the sandbox. But Mirha, she was stitched from my grief, my insomnia, and every ounce of imposter syndrome that calcified into paranoia. She wasn't a product. She was insurance, and now they were weaponizing her against me. The next morning, I walked into the office like nothing had happened, but every smile felt like glass in my gums. I stared at Jacob over my monitor, watched him struggle with a merge conflict like a high schooler cheating on a pop quiz he'd already seen the answers to. His eyes kept flicking over to me. I smiled once, slow and thin. He didn't smile back. I added a final layer of defense into Mirha's engine, something I'd held back from even my Oslo contact. An execution lock, remote triggered, single string. You copy the core without authorization, Mirha chokes herself mid-process and dumps a traceable stack of every machine she's touched. Think kill switch meets spiteful librarian. I called it last breath. Then I waited. Friday afternoon, two things happened almost simultaneously. First, my inbox pinged with a calendar update. End of sprint demo mandatory conf. Room A, and second, my Oslo contact sent me a screenshot. Alethea, repackaged, renamed PulseSync, had just soft-launched on a private funding forum used by investors to preview startup tech. The listed creators? Adam R/Jacob L/Rebecca G, no mention of me, no source credits, not even a licensing footnote. I didn't rage. I didn't scream. I took a breath so deep I felt the bruise in my ribs from where I'd tripped on my coffee table 2 nights ago coding through sunrise. Then I stood up and walked into conference room A, 10 people, 4 execs, a projector already fired up. Adam in the corner with the clicker like a kid on career day. Thanks for joining, Vive, he said with a fake charming nod. Glad you could see the culmination of your team's great work. Your team, not you, not once. He clicked the remote. Their stolen code lit the screen. Sleek UI, bullshit branding, a tagline that said, predict before they think. Mirha's heartbeat hummed on my encrypted drive. I took out my phone, typed 3 words into a blank terminal app I'd sideloaded, breathed no more, and hit enter. Nothing happened on the projector, nothing obvious. But the moment Jacob hit demo run on their version of PulseSync, the screen lagged, then flickered, and collapsed into raw JSON errors that looked like bloodstains. What the? Adam stepped forward. Jacob paled, clicked keys like they were morphine. It was working earlier, I swear I didn't. Oh my god, Rebecca muttered. Did we push to prod? I leaned against the doorframe and let the silence bloom. Looks like your pulse flatlined, I said. Every head turned. You might want to check the logs, I added. Adam's face shifted. Recognition, then confusion. Then something colder. What did you do? I did what I always do, I replied. I cleaned up your mess. I walked out before he could speak again, but the best part? I hadn't triggered the real release yet. Mirha was still waiting, and she had a voice. I didn't go home after the implosion. I walked until my feet blistered, past the tech district, past the overpriced dog bakeries and algorithmic wine bars. I ended up at an all-night diner with cracked red booths and a waitress who poured coffee without asking. The kind of place where you could vanish in plain sight. That night, I wasn't Vive the back-end engineer. I wasn't resource reallocation or cultural mismatch or any of the corporate euphemisms they'd been sharpening like blades behind my back. I was just a woman with a laptop bag and a war to finish. Mirha was safe, but visible now. Anyone watching the demo failure closely would start asking questions, and I'd bet my last functioning nerve that Adam wasn't going to play fair. He'd dig, he'd spin, he'd scream sabotage to the board and try to paint me as an unstable rogue dev with a god complex. The kind of woman who went off script, which was why I had to go louder. I opened a fresh repo that night under a pseudonym. New LLC paperwork already filed through a friend's paralegal contact in Arizona. Logo, a snake eating its tail. Product name, Mirha, no more metaphors, just truth. I uploaded the documentation. Clean, aggressive, unapologetic. Listed features Adam's Frankenstein version could never dream of integrating without my private models. I wrote the landing page like a punch in the throat, built to think, not just sync. No breadcrumbs, no loyalty, just evolution. Mirha doesn't predict the future. She makes you obsolete in it, then I hit publish. Within hours, it was climbing the charts on Hacker News, 1,000 upvotes. Comments full of engineers I respected whispering versions of what the hell is this? And is this even real? And then came the email. From Rachel, board member, founder of 3 companies, Adam's former mentor. Subject line, you didn't burn the bridge, you turned it into a runway. Body, call me tonight or don't. Either way, he's cooked. But you're the meteor. I stared at that message like it was a hallucination. Then my phone rang, unknown number, US East Coast. I let it go to voicemail. 15 seconds later, another ping. This time, a message from someone I hadn't spoken to in 6 years. Alec M. The only person I ever let into my code. The only one I ever loved enough to break rules for. One who disappeared after our app got crushed in a licensing lawsuit we should have won. Saw Mirha. You really did it, Vive. You need protection. Call me. They're going to come after you harder than you think. I stared at those words. My finger hovered over reply, and that's when someone knocked on the diner window. I looked up. Jacob outside, pale, sweating, his eyes wild. He mouthed something, you need to run, and then he was gone. I didn't move at first, just stared at the place where Jacob's face had been, reflected in the smeared diner glass like some sick fever ghost. You need to run. It echoed like a riddle with a time bomb sewn inside. The waitress asked if I wanted a refill. I nodded because I couldn't remember how to speak. Then I paid cash and slid out the back door. The alley reeked of fryer oil and piss. I ducked behind a dumpster, heart hammering like it wanted to claw out of my ribs. I pulled out my phone, wiped the screen with my sleeve, and called Alec. 2 rings. No hello, you're compromised, he said, voice low and flat. They know about the repo. Your real identity's leaking through backend DNS. You used the Arizona Corp, right? Yeah, they subpoenaed it an hour ago. They're going after you for IP theft. I leaned against the wall, knees wobbling. My IP. Doesn't matter, Alex said. They'll claim it was built on company time with company tools. They'll say Pulse Sync was just a version of what you did under their employment. I laughed and it came out wrong, hollow, rattled. So I guess we're skipping polite emails now. He didn't laugh back. Do you still have the access logs? Yes. Do you still have the stack trace from the crash? I do. Then we go nuclear. I hesitated. There's more. Jacob? He showed up tonight, found me, warned me. Of course he did, Alec muttered. That kid's a rat in a maze full of snakes. Probably trying to save his own skin. I think he's scared. He should be. A pause. Then Alex said the one thing I hadn't dared let myself hope for. Let me help you finish this. Finish, not defend, not negotiate. He meant end them. That night I didn't go home. Alex sent me a secure link to a remote environment hosted in Iceland. Encrypted everything. Air-gapped the build from public traffic. Mirha was migrating quietly, cell by cell like a virus with a destination. While she moved, I sent a package to a contact I hadn't pinged since DEFCON 2017. Calix, whistleblower, server troll, and former NSA contract auditor, who now lived in a trailer with 24 old ThinkPads and a vendetta against corrupt VC firms. Inside the envelope, the original commit history. Video of Adam's keynote where he pitched my architecture as his own. Slack logs where he told Jacob to rebrand Vive's primitive code into something people will actually buy. And the cherry? A USB loaded with a stripped-down Mirha fork. The version that watches user inputs, recognizes intention patterns, and adapts silently. The note I taped to it said, let her watch. Let her learn. You'll know when it's time. 2 days later, Calix uploaded the keynote video to a fake VC Leaks account on Twitter, tagged it #ghost of Mirha. The thread blew up overnight. Then he did something I didn't ask him to do, because Calix doesn't ask permission. He fed Mirha's stripped-down version into an old product being quietly beta-tested by a startup incubator connected to Adam's former funders. It devoured the system. Users started tweeting things like, "New Pulse Sync update just froze my system," and asked if I'd like a refund. Why does this version feel like it knows what I'm doing before I do? No way this is safe. What the hell did you guys build? The board launched an internal audit. Half the code didn't match what had been promised. Dependencies were pointing to ghost directories, and in the middle of it all, buried in the crash logs, Mirha had left a message. You tried to steal the flame, but you forgot I remember every spark. 3 hours later, my phone buzzed. Rachel again? He's spiraling. He screamed at legal. Punched a screen during the audit. Then another message. Shorter, colder, Vivian, they found Jacob. He's not coming in Monday. Jacob's name hit my chest like a blunt object. I didn't ask if he was dead. I didn't have to. They'd found him. That meant they were already past damage control and deep into scapegoat mode. Jacob was the leak, the soft underbelly, the one too naive to know how far this would go. He didn't even know how to encrypt his own laptop. I warned him once, weeks ago, after I saw him commit a debug script straight into dev without sanitizing the tokens. He laughed. He wasn't laughing now. I closed the phone, sat in Alex's borrowed apartment, and stared at the wall like it owed me an apology. The curtains were drawn. The lights were off. Only the hum of the air purifier filled the silence, a nervous little machine trying to make toxic air breathable again. This is escalation, Alex said from the kitchen, his voice edged with steel. They're not just burying you, Vive, they're sending a message. They already did, I said, to Jacob. He slid me a mug of tea. I didn't drink it. Instead, I opened Mirha's control node. I stared at the admin panel, line after line of code that could quietly infect every Pulse Sync instance that ever touched my stolen architecture. There were over 11,000 active installs. Their system had grown fast, too fast. Investors loved it. Startups gobbled it up. It was a Frankenstein network of my ideas duct-taped together by Adam's arrogance. And I had the kill switch, not just last breath. This one was deeper. I called it Persephone. Once triggered, every API endpoint tied to their version of Mirha would begin returning false positives. Prediction algorithms would spiral, spitting out broken behavior models. Data would rot from the inside. Their system wouldn't crash. It would lie. Subtly, strategically. Death by unreliability. I hit this, I said to Alec, and I nuked them from the inside. Their credibility, their demos, their funding. Gone. Alec didn't flinch. Do it. I looked at him. I need to be sure this isn't just revenge anymore. No, he said, it's precedent. I didn't press it yet. I needed one more thing. Closure, so I sent one last message. To Adam, a Slack DM. One line, do you remember the elevator? It took 5 minutes for him to respond. I always knew you were unstable. Legal's coming for you. I sent him a file in return, titled Autopsy Report JSON. Inside, logs of his unauthorized file accesses, every commit Jacob pushed while using Adam's stolen credentials. Screenshots of him mocking my repo timestamps. A silent recording from the conference room when he pitched my tech to investors. The last frame? His voice, clear and gloating. Once she ships, we drop her. She's just a builder. We're the brand. I typed back one more message. Turns out the builder left termites in the walls. Then I opened the Mirha panel, selected every node labeled Pulse Sync Public Build, and hovered over the Execute Persephone command. One tap, I waited, nothing happened. Then slowly, like frost spreading across a windshield, Pulse Sync's core began to twitch. Not crash, not explode, just corrupt. By midnight, CTO from one of their biggest clients tweeted, Pulse Sync's recommendations just led us to delete 47 client records. Legal is fuming, rolling back now. By morning, a Reddit post in r/sysadmin read, anyone else feel like Pulse Sync's AI just had a stroke? And under it, buried in the replies, was one line from an anonymous user. She remembers everything. By the time the board called an emergency all hands, the damage was metastatic. Two of Pulse Sync's flagship clients had already issued public statements pausing integration. A third quietly purged the tool from their stack and replaced it with a duct-taped combo of legacy systems and panic. Their internal Slack, once a smug echo chamber of startup buzzwords, had become a digital crime scene of blame and denial. Meanwhile, I sat in a hoodie and leggings in Alec's apartment, watching it unravel like a soap opera written in Python. Alex kept sending me screenshots like they were love letters from chaos. Stock graphs nosediving, investor group chats melting down, Reddit threads dissecting Pulse Sync's collapse with forensic glee. And deep in the shadows, Mirha thrived. We launched her under the radar, invite only, no press, just whispers among trusted engineers and burned-out developers who'd lived too long under the yoke of executives like Adam. People who didn't want smarter tech. They wanted honest tech. Within 48 hours, we had sign-ups from 3 unicorn CTOs. Within 72, Mirha was trending in dark dev circles like an underground mixtape. Alec called it open source vengeance. I just called it justice in compression format. Then came the meeting request. A calendar invite sent to my encrypted account from Rachel's assistant. Subject, board clarification session, private location, penthouse boardroom, Avalon Tower attendees. Vivian Hale, Rachel Lynn, Adam Rowe, 2 board members, names withheld, time, 10 o'clock a.m. 1 hour I stared at the invite like it had teeth. Alec didn't say a word when I showed him. You're not going alone, he finally muttered. But I needed to. The penthouse smelled like lavender and fear. Adam was already there when I arrived, pacing like a man watching his own execution date scroll closer. His suit looked expensive and slept in. Face, puffy, blotched, and stretched with a rictus of corporate civility. Vive, Rachel greeted calm as ever. She wore a navy sheath dress and no jewelry. The kind of look that says, I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to end you legally, financially, or otherwise. Thank you for coming, she said. This isn't a deposition. This is a reckoning. I sat down. Adam didn't. I know what you did, he hissed. You infected our product. I raised an eyebrow. I protected my property. It was company property. I slid a folder across the table. No words, just paper. Inside, the employment clause from my contract, buried 3 pages deep, written before Adam even joined. A clause I'd negotiated myself during hiring, standard for devs with proprietary methods. Any IP not developed on company machines, servers, or during tracked hours belonged to me. And I had the Git logs, timestamps, and video backups to prove every second of it. Rachel smiled like a guillotine. I had legal confirm it's airtight. Adam's mouth opened, but nothing came out. So here's the deal, she continued, turning to me. We want in. I blinked. Excuse me, Mirha, she said. We want to invest, partner, maybe acquire. I stared at her, then laughed. You want to buy the fire after you tried to kill the spark? We want to fund it, she said coolly. On your terms, you keep control, but let us back the next version. Adam was staring at her like she'd grown horns. You can't be serious. Oh, I am, Rachel said without looking at him. Adam, you're being removed from your position effective immediately. You'll sign the resignation papers by noon or I'll leak the keynote theft myself. He turned beet red, jaw clenched. You said I lied, she cut in. Like you did. Difference is I do it better. She turned back to me. Vivian, you built something revolutionary. You did it while we slept on you. Let us make it right. I stood slowly, picked up the folder, tapped it twice against the table. Then I leaned forward and looked Adam dead in the eye. You called me just a builder, but you forgot one thing. What? Builders don't just build. I stepped closer. They bury things too, and I walked out. I didn't sign, not yet, because this wasn't over. Not until everyone who underestimated me was kneeling in the ruins of their assumptions. The next 48 hours felt like the eye of a storm, quiet in that eerie, temporary way, where even the wind holds its breath. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. Not while Pulse Sync servers flickered in their death throes and Mirha's pilot installs sang like sirens to the corners of the dev world. Every hour brought more requests for access. People from ex-Facebook skunkworks, rebel CTOs from failed Series B to KES, burned-out engineers with trauma-shaped instincts and zero tolerance for executive delusion. The revolution wasn't loud, it was precise. Alec called it the second leak, not of data of power, and I was the crack. By Sunday morning, Rachel emailed again. This time, no meeting invite. Just one sentence, Adam signed. NDA enforced, our offer stands. She attached a 7-figure term sheet, equity-heavy, structured buy-in, generous, with board oversight and clause buried deep. Alec read it, snorted, and said they want to put a leash on a wolf and call it a lapdog. I didn't respond. My brain was already elsewhere. In Iceland, Calix pinged me at 2:33 a.m. You're not gonna like this. Check Pulse Sync's repo mirror. I logged in. Someone had pushed a new branch, hidden behind layers of commits, obfuscated metadata. A nested engine labeled Reverb. The architecture was clumsy. Desperate, but beneath the mess, I saw it. They were trying to recreate Mirha, not from scratch, from fragments. Someone had harvested corrupted endpoints before Persephone triggered, scraped logs, and was now stitching together a chimera under a fake dev shell. It wasn't Adam, it was Rebecca. The same project lead who once told me your engine's fine, but it's not marketable. You don't sell brilliance, Vive, you package comfort. She was doing it again. This time with pieces of my ghost. And she had funding. I traced the forks through LLC trails that all funneled back to a boutique venture firm called Red Halo Capital, Rachel's sister fund. My hands shook, but not from fear, from clarity. They never wanted to invest in me. They wanted to contain me. Put me on a leash, feed me just enough freedom to distract me while their real plan, Reverb, grew in the shadows like black mold. Alec looked at me across the room. You still have the failsafe? I opened the admin shell. There she was, Mirha waiting in silence. I clicked into Reverb's sandbox and saw the root files were live. Dev tokens wide open. Rookie mistake or arrogance or both. I opened the code injector. Begin Echo Protocol. Y/and a protocol I'd built months ago in a moment of spite-fueled insomnia. Echo didn't crash a system. It didn't erase code. Rewrote the narrative. Injected false commits. Altered version histories. Made it look like every breakthrough in Reverb had been plagiarized from me. It would make PulseSync's entire ecosystem look like one long, criminal echo of the thing they tried to bury. I hovered. This was more than just revenge. This was erasure of the parasite. Vive, Alex said low, if you do this, you won't just win. You'll start a war. I looked up at him, then let them come, and I pressed Y. Echo didn't scream, it whispered. First, it slid into Reverb's repo like a rumor into a boardroom, subtle, insidious, untraceable if you weren't looking for it. Within seconds, commit histories began to twist. Author signatures warped. Timestamps shifted like bad dreams. Rebecca's name vanished from the code trail. Every innovation she claimed as hers, now publicly credited to V. Hale fork origin. The system was self-documenting, self-incriminating. Betrayal turned time bomb. Then came the Git logs, millions of lines of altered data suddenly exposed by a leaked calyx posted to r/technology under the headline. CEO's new AI tool copied from blacklisted system? Forensic breakdown inside. The post exploded. Within 2 hours, a Bloomberg journalist DM'd me asking for comment. I said nothing. Let the screenshots speak. By that night, tech press had latched onto the scandal like vultures to roadkill. PulseSync team accused of IP fraud. AI darling implodes after engineer's revenge fork. Was Mirha the real brain behind the brand? I watched the interviews like reruns of a show I'd already canceled. Rebecca, cornered on a Zoom webinar, stammered through half-baked denials as an anonymous moderator flashed commit diffs across the screen. Her eyes flickered. Her voice cracked. My code. Hinted across the screen like her confession. But I wasn't done. Because something else had been quietly uploading in the background. Mirha, public fork. Free, open, unrestricted license. I'd stripped out the dangerous parts, Persephone Echo, but left the heart intact. I wanted the world to build, not worship. She was never meant to be a throne. She was a torch. Within 24 hours, 30,000 downloads. Within 48, Amazon's dev team reached out. Then MIT, then someone claiming to be from a skunkworks unit of SpaceX, asking if I had time for a quiet lunch. I ignored them all. Instead, I went back to the diner. The one where Jacob had warned me, ordered a coffee, sat in the same booth. This time, nobody knocked on the window. Alec joined me an hour later, dropped a manila folder on the table. Inside, a dissolution notice for Red Halo Capital. Rachel had been forced out. A CC investigation pending. They're eating their own now, he said. You lit the match and they ran out of exits. I nodded, sipping coffee that tasted like ash and victory. Are you satisfied? He asked. I looked out the window. The city glowed, neon veins feeding a heart that almost forgot me. No, I said, but I'm heard, and that's the better ending. They built their empire on my silence. Now they build nothing unless Mirha lets them. Thanks for joining the revenge party, you wise rebels. Subscribe for more tales. Let's keep the office gossip hotter than a fresh pot.
Kids, they seem to get it. I wish that I could be like